Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters. A nurse taking care of her daughter's mysterious affliction struggles to hide her secrets when uninvited strangers take shelter in her home during a lethal blizzard. This is our raw reaction review for A Creature Was Stirring. Well, Luke, December is upon us, and we are here with our first holiday horror of the month of December, which is, I guess, pretty cool. I mean, it's we have some things to say, but it's one of those things where every year we get to this point, and I think that this year things have been kind of kicked off early for us with like obviously Thanksgiving last month, and It's a Wonderful Knife was very Christmas focused. So I feel like we've kind of been in it for a minute, but now it's the December's here, and we're watching real Christmas holiday horrors. Like, and it's that season, it's that time, and this is the first one. We actually reported on this on the Sunday Scaries back a few, almost a year ago, basically, right? It was like last November,
Yeah, it
early
was a while
December.
ago. Yep.
Yep, we said Scout Taylor Compton's got a new creature film coming out, a holiday horror, and they boasted about the practical effects and how they were going to stick to that. And I must say they do stick to that. But yeah, I don't know if there was much else really that I could say they stuck to or landed very well in this film. Because yes, unfortunately, A Creature Was Stirring. It missed the mark for me on this one.
Yeah, and as you said, we are here in December, and I did have the opportunity to discuss previous holiday horror with Santa Isn't Real on the channel here. So
Mm-hmm.
I did check that one out and was none too pleased with that one. And I got to say, the streak continues with A Creature Restoring. For me, also, this missed the mark. I was really excited for this one, to be honest. When you have a holiday horror and it automatically says A Creature Was Stirring, you kind of get a little goosebumpy, wondering what that's going to look like. And when they talk about practical effects, you definitely want to see that and what kind of, and the synopsis seemed pretty intriguing. I didn't know which avenue they were going to go down. But I got to say, every avenue they presented, there seemed to be a detour, and it just left me underwhelmed in wanting more because they didn't deliver.
Yeah, this was one that, of course, creature in the title. You guys know me; I say it every damn time there's a monster movie or or creature film. The last one I spoke about was, Loop Track just a week or so ago, and that one for me was, a bit underwhelming as well. But I would say that I think I enjoyed that one a bit more than A Creature Was Stirring, because at least that one the story kept moving, the pace was very consistent. This movie felt like and it's fine if a film does this, but it felt like there was a lot of ideas in this, but they just didn't really know where to focus it or how to take it, or what the true motivations of our threat were in this, and how it all came together. It seems like they just had a basic concept and they wrote 90 pages, and then they sold it. They went right for it, because I feel like there needed to be a little bit more time in the incubator here to really, I think, flesh this whole idea out, because they go for a lot of really broad topics in this. They go for a lot of very, serious, deep topics. And I just don't think a holiday horror, as this film was like billing itself as, and having a title like A Creature Was Stirring, and the trailer that we got showing this monster rolling around with Christmas lights and everything, I don't think the tone of this story and that presentation mixed well at all.
Yeah, and honestly, looking at the theme here, and I could be off base. I never talked to a screenwriter, haven't seen any interviews or anything like that. But it seems like the idea of a creature was stirring, and then a vague idea was presented, and it kind of just almost circumvented itself, I guess, where it was like, we got to stick to the A Creature Restoring, so let's set it around the holidays, and that just became more so the backdrop rather than really delivering in that holiday horror sense. In this one, I guess we should be clear that this takes place pretty much in one location where it's
Hmm.
just inside of a house. So you don't really have that, aspect of going out in the town and seeing lights and things like that. And when you're inside the house, they do make use of, Christmas lighting and things like that, which I think if I'm taking anything away from this film, it's more so the lighting usage they did use. I think it was fairly intriguing throughout of using the reds and greens, especially with low lighting. It was never really hard to see anything. So from that aspect, I thought it was, pretty well done. But I think for me, that's really the only, for the most part, the positive that I really take away from this film because, I think you're waiting for this to get going and they kind of connected some vague dots in terms of the theme that they wanted to tell. And there was really, for me, no real payoff for this one.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because I was also intrigued at the start of this. I did enjoy the cinematography and the lighting. I think that there's definitely competence here behind the camera and everything. Like they can make it look really professional for the low budget that it is. And there's a sequence involving what I have in the background here. Involving almost like a snow tunnel, which I thought was really cool, and I liked how they were doing it. It really gave me some hope, some light at the end of the tunnel, if I should say. But it, you know, at the end of the day, I think that we meander for so long in the just what is going on and why it's going on, and they give you so many vague different interpretations along the way that again, it just feels unfocused. It feels like the screenwriters and the filmmakers didn't fully know what's going on, and there is some metaphors and imagery in this that just left me honestly with my jaw hitting the floor. There's one involving Green Lantern that was just so ham-fisted and over the top that that's ultimately where I think I checked out on this movie and where I said no, this isn't for me. And it's a shame because I do think that there's some cool stuff in here. I mean, they boast about the practical effects of the creature, and I will say the practical effects are pretty well done. The creature, it is pretty unique. It's got an interesting design, and I think if you would have had more fun with it though, and this would have been a more uh holiday horror in the sense of just a dark horror film and a story set during the holidays, I think that creature would have paid off a little bit more for me. I think that it would have been a bit more, impactful and a bit more memorable. There is a really cool sequence involving a Christmas tree where you see some of its kind of like spininess and stuff come into play. But, it's just like, it feels like the holiday aspect of this holiday horror is very secondary.
Yeah, and again, I think it was just that backdrop because they came up with a creature and it was a creature restoring. So we kind of doubled down on that holiday horror where there is, that you don't get the warm and fuzzies that in some of these holiday horror films that you would get. In looking at this one, I think they wandered down each different avenue, but never fully fleshed out the story at all. And unfortunately, that kind of really hurt the viewing aspect of it because I found myself honestly, checking out probably at 30 minutes into it at most, I think, because it just felt like we were lingering a lot of the times. And when you kind of bill it as something particular, you kind of want to have that payoff. I think when the audience comes for it, it's something where you can't really pull back on it. You really got to have to really go full force with it. And I think they wanted to tell a different story. They used a different backdrop and kind of switched the scenario around a little bit, and that really did hurt the actual storytelling aspect of the film. And looking at the acting here, for me, didn't really knock anything out of the park. It was just kind of going through the motions. I think it was when you're dealing with these enclosed spaces and you're really heavily leaning on that acting. I think you do want those scenes that are going to really wow you, and I didn't get anything here.
I will say, for me, I thought that there were some moments where, like Scout Taylor Compton and Chrissy Metz, I thought that I liked the little rivalry that they had during the film. I thought that I could buy into that a little bit. They do play with another element here of like kind of one being more religious and one being not. But again, they don't go deep enough into it to really justify having those squabbles. And it does kind of pull us away from our central narrative here. And I think at the end of the day, where this all decides to like tie itself up, and once you get that big reveal of what's actually going on here, it just doesn't feel earned. It doesn't feel like cohesive. And to me, I just had a really hard time buying into just like what exactly, like, so this happened, obviously not spoiling anything, but this happens, then this is how the creature is implemented into it because of this from a different time. And it's like, it's just, it's all over the place. And it just made it really hard for me to actually attach to the characters. And I think that's probably, it was probably hard for the actors too. So it's like, I give them a little bit of credit because I could see a solid performance coming through. But every time that it would start to shine, I think it would get hammed up by the story itself because it's not very focused.
Yeah, and I think that's what you're looking for in these films, where you want to find those characters, either on the positive or negative side of the spectrum, that you want to kind of relate to and resonate with while you're watching the film, so you can have some dog in the fight in a certain sense. So, by the end, when we do get to a certain, closure of a story, I did not feel connected with any of these characters, so it didn't really pack any punch to me. So it was just kind of, there, and then you kind of end things. So, and I think that is attributed to a disjointed story and not really doing enough with your characters. And yes, you're enclosed in a house, but I think there is enough space in there for you really to make some meaningful scenes and some dialogue choices that you could really, have that standpoint of, wow, at least this scene was really well done. And I didn't really get anything there. So for me, this one just left me very underwhelmed.
I agree. I do agree too. So unfortunately for me, A Creature Was Stirring is going to be a slash hit. I just don't really see this one being one that I can recommend very highly to many people. It just, again, when you have such an unfocused narrative, and when you're looking at the term holiday horror, you look for something a little bit more fun, not as bleak. And really, I think the film just has an identity crisis, and it kind of affected the whole product here. So yeah, I can't really sit here and boast or recommend it. I mean, if you're going to go out and see this, or if you're going to rent this, by all means, if it really seems like something that intrigues you, go ahead and do it, support indie film. But I can't sit here and send people to this film because, again, it just, I think that there's just too many issues stirring around in the pot there.
Yeah, and for me, this film didn't work. It would be tough for me to recommend, but I think there could be an audience for this one in terms of what they do end up dealing with. You know, uh, it's a little heavy-handed probably for holiday horror, so you kind of have to know what you're getting into. So maybe do a little bit of research before you go into this one. But I think there could be some sort of underlying narrative that some people could resonate with while being in the horror space. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and give this one a proceed with caution, just because, yes, you're in the horror space, but you're not dealing with a full-fledged creature feature here. So kind of be aware with that. And yes, there is some, um, Christmas settings, but it's not really full-fledged holiday horror. It's just kind of there in the backdrop. So yeah, I think, if you know what you're getting into, you might enjoy this one. But I think, if you're getting there for the creature as well as, that Christmas aspect, I think you're going to be underwhelmed.
Yeah. Well, it's unfortunate. Again, Luke also had an unfortunate viewing for another seasonal horror film this week. But yeah, that was A Creature Was Stirring. We definitely will keep you guys going on with these holiday horrors. I mean, we have December to December right around the corner. So believe us, there will be some fun to be had with some classics. But yeah, this is definitely one that, again, if you are going to check it out, if you're interested in it, go ahead, check it out. Let us know what you thought. Maybe we're way off base here. Maybe I'm just being too harsh. Like Luke said, there is some underlining, kind of messaging and territory here that might resonate with other people. It just didn't resonate with me or him. But nonetheless, that's where we sit with it. So let us know what you guys thought of this film. If you got a chance to check it out, if you were excited to check it out, still do. I mean, obviously, like I said, support indie film, but this just didn't work as a whole for us. So alrighty, guys, it's going to wrap us up here, but we do have a review out right now for Godzilla Minus One. And of course, like Luke said, he had one for Santa Isn't Real that came out yesterday. So definitely check that bad boy out. And alrighty, yeah. So until next time, I am Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.